Florida State fans have been in this situation before, a tough spot at 0-3. How does it compare to 2021 when Florida State was 0-4 and started out in a similar place of despair? We're going to talk about that in today's BetUS video. The biggest difference is being where the program felt like it was going into that year. The fact that Florida State had a few losing seasons in a row, the fact that Jimbo had quit on the team, the fact that you felt like you were never going to get out of it is so much different than what it feels like coming off of a 13-0 season, a 13-1 when you look at the Orange Bowl too. Richie and I are going to talk about that today and then share some thoughts afterwards as well. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Let's get right to that. Richie, we talked about this on Wednesday night when we did our preview, and I want to ask you again, and I want to get your take on it, and want to, we will probably clip this up and make it a video, but want to get your take on the differences now. And I've got some data and some stats and some facts to bring to you this time, so it's not just all feeling. But I asked you on Wednesday night, was the start of this season worse than 0-4? Was it not as bad as 0-4? We disagreed in that moment. But any new thoughts, or for anybody that wasn't tuned into that, how do you compare what we're feeling right now at 0-3 in 2024 to when we were 0-4 in 2021? Obviously, that's the Notre Dame, you lost to Jacksonville State, you lost to Louisville, and I think Wake Forest was another one of those. How do you feel right now compared to then?
Worse. And I don't think it's close at this point, because you are in year 5 and you invested, I'm not going to speculate on a number, but you invested a lot of money in a quarterback to bring in because you thought you had a roster that was talented and ready enough to compete to get to the college football playoff. I don't think a national championship was ever going to happen this year, but you definitely thought heading into the season. I certainly did. I think you did. A lot of people outside of the Florida State media world did, who are national respected people, thought this Florida State team was capable of making the college football playoff. And outside of the complete chaos happening where somehow Florida State finishes the ACC season 6-2, ends up in Charlotte and beats somebody, the playoff, we're not going to play. Let's put it that way. But to have that feeling, we're not going to the playoff here on September 15th of all dates. And I think we knew it before today, but I think it's a guaranteed thing at this point. At least when you were 0-4, you would just come off a horrible season. You were 3-6 this season before in 2020. Weird COVID season, I get it, but still 3-6 is 3-6. So starting 0-4 after that, what did you expect? You certainly didn't expect 0-4, but this season, if you told me we were going to start 0-3 heading into the season, I'm like, look, especially
You're crazy.
looking at the schedule, like, okay, Georgia Tech, Boston College, and Memphis. Like, I'm putting all my money on 3-0 being the most likely, and I would put a ton of money that 0-3 just won't happen. And here we are. So I think this is worse than the 0-4 start, in my opinion, TJ.
We will get right back to chatting with Richie, but first I do want to give some love to our friends over at BetUS. I shudder to think about what that Florida State win total is going to be updated to be, maybe like 2.5 or 3.5. But if you want to go bet on it over at BetUS, you can use our code YouTube150 right now. That's YouTube150 for 150% deposit bonus match on your first deposit. Your next 2 deposits are up to 125% bonus deposit match. That's up to $2,000. We appreciate BetUS for their support. Again, use the code YouTube150. That's YouTube150 for your deposit match bonus today. Appreciate BetUS for their support. So you mentioned that Florida State has been favored by 35 points this year. 35 points if you combine the 3 games. I went with 11 and 14 and 7 to come up with that. They've lost by 11 and 15. They've lost by 26, right? So they lost to Boston College by 15. Is that right? Or was it 14? Could have been 14. So 25. Yeah, that's a split of 60. Like 60 points wrong in Vegas. Somehow Florida State a favorite against Cal by 3 points, at least at the time of this recording on Sunday night. Yeah, I don't know. So I kind of feel the same way, but I want to bring up a couple of things and get your thoughts on them. I think that I feel worse about it, right? I'm finally over to like where you are, and I feel worse about this right now because when you lost the first one, you lost to Notre Dame as an 18-point dog, right? The Jacksonville State loss was just the worst thing you could imagine, but it was, Jordan was hurt, you didn't play him. You were a team that was coming off of a big emotional loss. It was a fluky last play.
Yeah.
Certainly still inexcusable, but you'd say like, oh, that wasn't, that's not indicative of who we are, and it was, right? Like that year didn't go super well for the Noles. You miss a bowl and everything. But then you lose to Wake Forest 35-14. I mean, Wake was, if I remember correctly, Wake was a decent team that
They were good
year.
that year.
They went 11-3. They went to the ACC championship and they lost to Pitt there. But I mean, you lose to an ACC champion and then you lose to Louisville by one score. Louisville that year, not a great team either, but they did go to a bowl. But you were competitive. You were at least competent there in those games. You were in every game minus the Wake game. And even that, I think you had a bunch of turnovers or something that kind of made it look a little worse than it was. I think we got stopped on 4th and 1 inside the 10 twice. Now that I'm remembering that. So I feel worse about it now. I will say, I still think I have more hope for the future than I did then. Like when we were losing that, I was like, man, this is just what Florida State football is forever. Like we're never going to be back because we were coming off the Jimbo Quit year. We were coming off the two Willie years, the bad Mike year. And then this was bad Mike year number 2. And so like at that point I was just like, man, we're never going to be back. Like we just will never get back. I don't feel that way as much this time because Norvell has kind of proven like he can get this thing going in the right direction. Now, will he? I don't know. It's a tough job. And certainly not going to say like, oh, he's just got this in the bag. But I'll say I feel worse about it right now. I do have a little more hope for the future because I guess I've seen Norvell, make this thing work in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Here's a couple of things for you. Brian Kelly. All right. And this is not to say like, oh, well, we definitely are in great shape. Brian Kelly in 2012 went 12-1, lost in the national championship game. Next year went 9-4, won the Pinstripe Bowl. Next year went 8-5. Next year went 10-3. In 2015, went to a BCS Bowl. And then in 2016, went 4-8, and then had 3 straight 10-win seasons. Actually had 5 straight 10-win seasons. Sorry, 2017, 18, 19, 20, and 21, 10-win seasons every single year after that. 2016, awful year for Brian Kelly in Notre Dame. He was able to rebound pretty quickly. Jim Harbaugh.
Wait, real quick. You know what Brian Kelly did after 2016?
Don't make a joke.
No, he fired.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
And defensive coordinator.
Hold on. I'm with you, but I want to do this one too. Jim Harbaugh in Michigan, 10 wins, 8 wins, 10 wins, 9 wins. 2020, they didn't play as many games, obviously. He had a 2-win season. They went 2-4 in 2020. They were absolutely putrid. And then he won 12 wins, 13 wins, 15 wins. I'm not necessarily saying that Mike Norvell turns this thing around and goes to 10 wins next year. That is not my implication at all. But I do think, and say what you were going to say, because not only did Brian Kelly do that, Jim Harbaugh did that too. And that's why I paused you real quick, because I wanted to talk about both coaches. There's a path to getting this thing back on track. And I don't think Mike Norvell just all of a sudden forgot how to be a good coach. He was a good coach at Arizona State. He was a good coach at Memphis. He was a good coach at Florida State that turned the program around. But it's going to have to take some massive changes. So Brian Kelly and Jim Harbaugh did.
Yeah. No, and I think Brian Kelly, he did what all Florida State fans wish Jimbo had did. He made necessary changes. I remember he said, quote, "This can never happen again," when he was at Notre Dame. Before he ended up at LSU, and he made wholesale changes and turned that program around for the positive. Jim Harbaugh, there was a point. He's a Michigan man, right? So he had a longer leash than a lot of other coaches would have normally, and he made changes that had to be made, and they just won a national title last year. Mike Norvell needs to make I don't know if I want to say wholesale changes, but there needs to be a lot of changes that need to be made, whether it be personnel, coaching, philosophy, whatever you may say, whatever you think. Norvell, and I think he knows that, and I'm confident that he understands that, and he's just in a really tough position right now because there's not a lot you can do midseason. The biggest thing you could do midseason is bench DJ Uiagalelei, and give Brock or Luke the reins. And I think if Mike Norvell thought one of those two would give him a better chance to win, he would have done that by now. So I think by what he sees in practice, he does not think that. I think personally, as a fan who just watches on Saturdays, you need to make a change. But he's there every single day, and he's not in the business of, oh, well, the Battle's End paid DJ this much money, so I got to play him. No way is that Mike Norvell's thought. He's going to go with who he thinks is the best option to winning games. But I think at the end of the season, TJ, in 2 months from now, when we're talking, we're going to have a serious discussion about, and it might be uncomfortable, but naming names of who needs to go and
Oh,
deserves to stay.
I ain't uncomfortable. I think when we're not attacking. When we talk about stuff like that, we're not attacking people's character, right?
No.
Like you
Right.
make hundreds of thousands of dollars to coach football. If you're not doing that at a good rate, like we're going to talk about it, right? Same thing with playing football at this point anymore, right? Like if we say you need to be fired or you need to be benched, I'm not saying you're a bad person. And just
Yeah.
I think you just need to perform a little bit better. And, at the end of the day, that is Mike's call. But yeah, I don't know. Mike obviously has to make some pretty big wholesale changes, some pretty big, massive things need to turn around. But there is precedent for turning something around like this. You win 4 games at Notre Dame, you win 2 games at Michigan. And I know that was a 6-game season, but still, your biggest rival went out and went undefeated and went to the playoff. So, 6-win season or not, you can't go 2-4. Michigan was terrible that year. They would have been a 4-win team had they played an entire schedule. It's just got to get better. And there is precedent again for it being turned around. Can it be? I don't know. I really don't know. Harlan, we can flip to the next one. Make sure, hey guys, if you're watching, we've got a pretty good number in here tonight. Make sure that you do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. I think you have to be subscribed to comment. So if you're like a hater that's watching in and you want to troll us a little bit, you certainly are welcome to do that, right away. So
we welcome all hate watchers.
Yeah. Hate watchers are fine too. YouTube doesn't discriminate. So